VAT is not always harmful for you or maybe burden for you. Sometimes it have added benefits, but we do not see that from that point of view. Hi, my name is Muhammad Arslan, and today I will discuss another hot topic of the businessman in UK. If you're running a company in UK or maybe you're a sole trader, so you may have concerns regarding VAT. What is VAT? How does it work? And all the mechanism of that. So today I will discuss the most common six questions. First of all, what is VAT? Why to pay VAT and who pay VAT? And some general tips regarding VAT planning. At which point, what kind of planning you may need and what should you be doing? And then the remaining three questions: when to pay VAT, what is the rate, and how to avoid this, obviously legally. Okay, so I don't want to prolong this video, just make it simple and short so that it will not consume too much of your time. So what is VAT? VAT is a kind of indirect tax. Whenever you buy something, you pay a certain portion of VAT on that purchase. This is indirect because this is not being paid directly to the HMRC. It goes through a channel, right? So you go to the grocery shop, you buy something, you notice on the bill there is certain amount of VAT. That VAT, the grocery shop is liable to pay back to HMRC. So that needs to collect from you and pay to HMRC. That's why this is kind of indirect tax. And why this kind of tax is, obviously this is a source of income for HMRC. Government run different projects like healthcare, infrastructure, social welfare, etc. So all that funding goes from the company, from the government taxes. So that's why income for government. Okay, now the question is, who pays VAT? VAT is paid by the consumer, by the individual who is using that product or service. So how does it work? You pay the VAT to the company or to the supplier, and that company or supplier is supposed to pay that VAT to HMRC. So that's kind of agent work. Like, just create a let's create a short example to understand this. You bought an equipment for 500 pound, and you paid 50 on top of that for VAT, so total cost to you 550. The company or the supplier from whom you bought that equipment, he's supposed to pay the 50 pound that was on top of 500 to HMRC, right? So at this point, we are clear how this works indirectly. Now the second question is, what about the VAT you paid on your purchases being a company, right? Since as in previous example we said that we bought an equipment of 550, so as long as you're a consumer then it's fine. But if you're a company and you bought that to resell it, so in that case, what you can do, you can submit your VAT return to HMRC, and in that return you can mention all the purchases on which you paid VAT, but you should be VAT registered for that. We will discuss in later video who should register and who should not and how to. So let's say if you are VAT registered, you can claim all the VAT paid on your purchases, services you're consuming, or your stock you bought in to run your business. You will submit return to HMRC and HMRC will pay that back to you. So all sorted here. So one thing here to discuss is, what about the small business and the large businesses? Because normally large businesses have VAT registrations and the small ones are not, or maybe it's not feasible for them. So here the tax planning comes in, like VAT planning. There are certain benefits. So registering for VAT not always a harmful or burden for you. That can have certain advantages in different cases, even if you're a small business. And this is something which varies from case to case. I would suggest just check a website which I made for the tax planning and education purpose. That is Ar7la9 Arslan.com. I am placing there all the useful tools and tools to equip you to plan your tax, to understand, to foresee it, and many more video guides and documents for your tax help. So apart from that, if you have any question popping up in your mind so far, you can comment below on this video. I will definitely reply that comment, or otherwise you can email me at ask@arslan.com. Okay, so when to pay VAT? There are two aspects. I'm not discussing here the deadline to pay VAT. This is something I will clarify in next video. This is when to pay means when a business supposed to get registered for VAT and pay VAT to HMRC, right? So if your turnover threshold crossed 90,000, like your annual turnover crossed the threshold of 90,000, you are compulsorily required to register for VAT. You are bound to register. There is no choice for you, right? And what is running 12 months? Sometimes it confuses the people. Running 12 month is like, for example, your accounting year starts from Jan 25 and ends at December 25. So this is a 12-month period, but when you will go in January 26, your running 12 month will change. That will be the that will be then Feb 25 to Jan 26. So it keeps on running. That's why we call it running 12 months. Like at which point you're standing right now, just take a look of the sale from that point back to 12 months, right? Okay,
Okay.
once we have clarification over the other matters, now what is the rate? HMRC classifies all the products from three to four categories. Some products have 20% VAT, to that we call a standard rated product. Some have 5%, that is reduced rate VAT products, and some products have 0% VAT. Like most of the books, the educational books have 0% VAT, but it depends. So, broadly speaking, we have three categories of product which have the VAT. Then once you register for VAT, when you should register after crossing your sale 90,000, you're bound to register. But if your sale is below 90,000, you can choose to register if you can find certain benefits with the registration. As I mentioned, this is very vast topic and it depends case to case. So just comment below if you want me to make video on any specific topic or area. I will definitely do that. Okay, so once you're registered, you have VAT schemes. There are different VAT schemes. Like annual, you have to submit your VAT return for the 12-month period rather than submitting every 3 months. And flat rate VAT, that's kind of relief for the small businesses. Like you charge VAT to your customer at 20%, but while paying to HMRC, you pay the lower percentage instead of 20%. So the what you call that, the margin or the difference between that percentage, you can keep that money in your pocket, and that is for your purchases. Like you're in if you're on flat rate scheme, you cannot claim VAT on your purchases. So your small business. So that's why HMRC says you take the VAT at 20% and pay us, for example, at 16%. The remaining 4% you can keep it in your pocket as a compensation for your purchases VAT. Where to apply, why to apply, how does it work? Again, I will make another video. I don't want to include it here because it will be massive then. Okay, another scheme is cash accounting scheme. Rather than paying and reclaiming VAT on the basis of invoice date, you can go with the cash basis. If it suits you, whatever comes in and goes out in terms of cash, only on that basis you can calculate and pay VAT to HMRC. Marginal scheme, again, this is for the second hand products, for example, or the antique products. For example, you are selling second hand cars, okay, and you cross the VAT threshold, you're supposed to get registered now. So obviously you bought a car for 20,000, and if you're selling it at 25,000, you won't be paying VAT on 25,000, right? So you can only pay VAT on the margin or the money you earned on top of that, like 20 minus 25. The 5,000 is the amount on which you should be paying VAT. How does it work? I will explain later. Again, not going in depth. Okay, the next and most common question of businesses is how to avoid VAT. Before heading towards this, I will request you to first ask yourself why you want to avoid VAT, because avoiding VAT registration is not always VAT is not always harmful for you or maybe burden for you. Sometimes it have added benefits, but we do not see that from that point of view. Okay, so let me give you one example as well. For example, you're running a courier business and you invoice your customer for the services you rendered for a specific period. For example, you're charging your customer 5,000 for now, okay, and he's okay to pay 5,000 against your services, but you register for VAT and you then charge invoice for, let's say, 5,500, for example, and your customer is ready to pay you the 500 VAT that is on top of 5,000. This is another debate why he would be ready to pay, because he can already claim that VAT from HMRC. So obviously that won't create a mess for him or her as well. So your customer is ready to pay you 500 VAT, and what you need to do, you just need to invoice your customer with VAT and take the VAT from your customer and pay this to HMRC. What is benefit for you here? You can claim all the VAT paid on your purchases by just registering for VAT. Since the VAT is not burden on your pocket, you're taking from customer and paying to HMRC. The added benefit is you can claim all the VAT on your purchases, like your fuel expense, your motor expenses, and etc. Okay, moving towards how to avoid. For example, this is not beneficial for you. You will have extra admin work, submitting tax returns, and all that stuff you want to avoid, legally avoid, right? So we can plan this thing accordingly. First of all, try to keep your turnover below threshold, VAT threshold. Just keep checking running 12 months if you're crossing that, because if you cross uh, even by mistake, and you do not notice this for a huge amount of time, even let's say you recognize this thing after 1.5 years. Oh, I crossed the VAT threshold 1 year back, right? So what HMRC will ask you to pay VAT for the complete period, like from the actual date when you cross the VAT threshold till now, you will have to pay that VAT. So keep check of your running 12 months sales, and obviously stay below threshold. You're not compulsorily then required to register for VAT. If any case you have to register, you can choose the right scheme for you, the suitable rate for you. For example, as previously I mentioned, there is a scheme of flat rate. Maybe if you're a small business but you have to register for VAT, you can choose the flat rate scheme, where we have different, HMRC mentioned different rates for different industries, so you can check what rate is for your industry. And maybe rather than registering as a standard rate VAT, you can go for the flat rate. And like there, I mentioned there are many more schemes as well, so it depends, it's very subjective thing. Okay, and then you can see if this is a one-off event. For example, you got a big contract in this year, and just because of that your annual sale was supposed to be around 50 to 60,000 or maybe 70,000, but in this year you got unexpectedly huge contract, and that increased your sale to, let's say, to 120,000. So the 40-50,000 jump was not regular, you won't be having that in future. So you can request HMRC that this was the one-off event, so that's why I crossed the threshold, but I don't want to register for VAT. So obviously HMRC can consider this thing, and you can avoid the registration if that was one-off event. Okay, legal split again. For example, if let's take the example of spouses. For example, there's a husband wife. Husband is running a business of let's say for the antiques, and wife is running a business of like nutrition. So these two niches are very separate, they have different operations, different, they're totally different from one another, right? So rather than they doing business under the one umbrella, like they register a company and they both merge the sales in one company, obviously when merging the sale of two separate businesses, it will cross the it may cross the VAT threshold. So rather than doing this, if you're doing a separate business, the husband can form another company for his business, and the wife can form another company for her business. So by this, the both companies will have their separate VAT threshold. 90,000 for husband's company, 95,000 will be for wife's company, right? So but the split should be legal, right? And again, there are so many strategies through which we can legally avoid or minimize the VAT by staying under the HMRC regulations and not doing anything unfair or illegal. This is something subjective, depends from case to case. So if you are in any situation you want advice, so obviously you can comment below, or you can email me. Watching. And next I would be making video on three different questions. What is the deadline missing consequences? What if you miss the deadline and the payment, the overdue payment of VAT? And how to claim refunds in the VAT return if you have, how you will get the refunds, how to file the VAT return, and then VAT deregistration consequences, when you should deregister, and how to deregister. So all that stuff we will discuss in next video. Thank you.